Welcome back to MPB's ACT math portion of the boot camp that we're doing. I am so glad that you came back to look at this test that we've just taken. We are going to do the first 5 questions today, so make sure that you're taking notes, make sure that you're looking at the math, see what we're doing. So let's go ahead and get started. So again, we are doing the first 5 questions today. So let's look and see what those look like. All right, so you really want to make sure that you answer correctly this first portion of the test. So we know that we do have 45 questions, 50 minutes. So you really want to look at that first 20 to 22 questions to make sure that you've really understood the questions, that you've looked at them, that you've answered them correctly, because that first 20 to 22 questions can really help you get a better score if you're trying to get into that math class or if you're trying to get those ACT scores up to get those scholarships. So let's go ahead and look and see what we've got. Here is our first question, and our first question says, Cameron took 4 tests and his scores were as follows: 100, 60, 80, and 30. Cameron took another test that was scored X. The mean score of the 5 tests he took was a 72. What's the score of X? So let's go ahead and look at some of this math. So I know that he made a 100. He also made a 60, and he made an 80, and he made a 30, along with the one we don't know. And his mean is 72 after we do all that division. So knowing how we find the mean, knowing how we find that average is what mean equals, let's go ahead and get some of these numbers to a prettier state so we can really focus on what the X is. So when I look at these, I'm going to add them together and I get 270 plus my X divided by my 5, and that's going to equal my 72. So let me get me another marker. So what I have to do is I need to get rid of that denominator. So I'm going to multiply this side by 5, multiply this side by 5. Those cancel out, and I'm left with 270 plus X. And then 72 times 5 is 360. So now we've got this a little bit more manageable. So let's go ahead and see if we can get that X by itself. This is a positive 270, so I'm going to subtract it on both sides. And so my X equals 90. So my answer is letter D. So remember what you did on the test. Did you get letter D? If not, look to see what math we used. Look to see what maybe you could have gotten confused so that you won't make that a mistake again. Let's go to our next question, which is question 2. And I'm going to erase while we read it. So it says, in the Venn diagram below, S, C, and P represent farmed, raised sheep, cows, and pigs respectively. How many of the 47 farms represented in the diagram do not raise cows? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write my diagram up here just so I can manipulate some of the numbers. So the first one I have is right here. That's going to be my sheep. And I've got a 12 in there. Then I've got this one down here, which is going to be my pigs. And I've got a 5 here. But between these, I have a 2. Then I'm going to have another circle right here that is going to be my cows that we're talking about. I have a 10. Sharing cows and sheep, I have 13. And sharing all 3, I have 1. And just sharing the cows and the pigs, I'm going to have a 4. Now, I do not want to raise cows in this problem. So for me not to raise cows, I am going to mark out everything that has to do with cows. So let's look. We're marking out the 10, we're marking out the 13, we're marking out the 1, and we're marking out the 4. Everything that has to deal with a cow. So how many farms do I have left? I have 12 that just do sheep. I have 2 that does sheep and pigs, and then I have 5 that does just pigs. So when I add them together, I get 19. My answer is I. Good job. All right, so let's look at our next question. Let's see if we can, there we go. So let's look at this problem. This is a reading problem, so we really want to make sure that we're looking at all the parts and pieces of this reading problem, making sure that we get everything that it's asking us. So let's go ahead and read it. It states, Marco designs a spinning wheel or a spinner wheel that has exactly 4 sections, red, blue, green, and yellow. He wants the spinner wheel to have 25% chance of landing on each section. He spins the wheel 500 times. The results of the spins are shown in the table below. Based on the results of the table, one of the following changes would be the best fix. Which one? A, he should decrease the area of the red section by increasing the area of the blue. He should increase the area of the red section by decreasing the area of the blue. He should increase the area of the red section by decreasing the area of any of the other 3 sections. He should decrease the area of the blue section, and then it does not matter which section area is increased. So there's our options. Let's go to the math. Here we go. My red section, I had 80 out of the 500. My blue section hit 165 times out of the 500. My green section hit 130 out of the 5 times, and my yellow was 125 out of the 5 times. So it would look something like this. So here's our spinner, and you would have your red, your blue, your yellow, and your green. All right, so let's look at this. My red hit how many? 80 out of 500. My blue hit what? 165 out of my 500. My green hit 130 out of 500. And then my yellow hit what? 125 out of 500. I'm going to change markers real fast. See if you can figure out the percentages. Now, Ms. Kimmel, why were you wondering about the percentages? Because in my problem, it says to have 25% chance of landing on each section. So let's go ahead and calculate those. I am going to take 80 and divide it by 500 and move my decimal 2 places to the right. 2 places to the left. Let's go ahead and make sure. So I have 80 divided by 500. Move it 2 places to the right. Miss Killen's getting crazy. We move it 2 places to the right, and I get 16%. I take this 165 and divide it by 500, moving my decimal 2 places to the right, and I get 33%. Take that 130 and divide it by 500, and move my decimal 2 places to the right, and I get 26%. Take that 125 and divide it by 500. Moving that decimal, you got it, 2 places to the right, and I've got 25%. Now, this one is basically 25%. This one is 25%, but these two are kind of far off from 25%. So I really wouldn't want to change my green and yellow. So when I go back to my options, when it tells me for C, it says increase the red and then decrease any other of the 3. That's not really good, because if I pick this one or this one, I'm going to change that percentage from 25%. So I know it can't be C. Let's look at D. He should decrease the area of the blue, which possibly could be right, but then increase any of the other. Well, that's not true, because if I increase this one, I'm still going to be a lot larger than that 25%. So I know C and D cannot be the answer. So let's go ahead and look at A and B. A says he should decrease the area of the red at 16% and increase the area of the blue. Well, that's going to take the red even further away from 25, and it's going to push the blue even further up from 25. So A cannot be the answer. So since we've done elimination and we found B, let's see what it says. It says he should increase the area of the red, correct, and decrease the area of the blue, also correct. So my answer would be B. Good job, guys. And we know that when we divide, we move our decimal 2 places to the right. All right, so let's look at our next problem. Problem 4. It is geometry. So while I'm erasing, let's go ahead ahead and read it. It says, in triangle ABC, angle A and angle C are congruent. We know that means they equal. Their angle, the measurements equal. Then it says the measurement of angle B is 134.6 degrees. What is the angle measurement for angle A? So let's go ahead and look at that. First of all, let's look at a triangle. The whole triangle, a triangle equals 180 degrees. So I got 180 degrees in here. I have A, B, and C. It says that A and C have the exact same angle measurement, and angle B is 143.6 degrees. So if I add all these angles up, I'm going to get 180 degrees. So let's show that. X plus 143.6 degrees plus X equals 180. Let's make those numbers a little prettier. So we're going to put like terms together. So 2X plus 143.6 equals 180. Let's try to isolate that variable. So I'm going to do some subtraction. And we're going to have 180 minus that 143.6. And I get 36.4 equals that 2X. Still got to isolate that variable, so I'm going to divide. So each of my X's equals 18.2 degrees. So that means what? My answer is F. Good job, guys. Make sure that you're understanding that a triangle's total measurement of the inside angles is 180 degrees. That's the key thing that we need to remember. And now let's look at this last problem and see what we got. All right, so I'm going to make it a little bigger so we can see. So it says, which of the following expressions is equivalent? And then we have this quadratic expression. Now we know that equivalent means has the same measurement or equals the same number. So, or in this case, meaning they equal. So one expression equals another expression. So I'm going to go ahead and write that quadratic up here. So I have x squared minus x minus 30. Well, they give me binomials as my possible answer. So when I go from a trinomial to a binomial or two binomials, I'm factoring. And I know when I factor my quadratics, I'm looking at A, B, and C. I'm going to take the factors of C that subtract to give me that -1. So let's look at the factors of C. So I've got 30. I've got 1 and 30. I've got 2 and 15. 3 and 10, 5 and 6. So which pair can I manipulate with subtraction to get a -1? Exactly right. So let's go ahead and build those two binomials. I'm going to have my 5 and 6. I'm going to have my x and x to get that x squared. Now, I know with this second operation being subtraction that they're going to be different. But which one is what? Is the 5 positive? Is the 6 positive? Is the 5 negative? Is the 6 negative? Which one is what? Remember, we're subtracting to get a -1. Exactly right. Positive 5 minus 6 does give me that -1. So when I look at my possible answers, my 6 has to be the subtraction, my 5 has to be the addition, and I know that my answer is C. I'm hoping as we go through these different problems that you're going to see maybe some steps that you missed, or, hey, that's why I got this answer, or I've never seen that. Let me make sure that I rewind and look at that again. I really want you to see how we're doing a good portion of these problems, because this test shows the majority of the concepts, not the exact questions, but the majority of the concepts that could be on this new ACT math portion. Now, as always, these are not the exact questions that you will have on this ACT, but just the concepts that we're looking at. So what do we need to do? We always need to what? You're right. We need to make sure that we are practicing daily. So as always, thank you for coming to learn with me. And remember, practice, 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 and have a great day.